Wife just told me she is attracted to women after years of marriage. So I'm 30M, talking to my wife, 30F, yesterday, and she jokingly mentions how our son, 3M, is clearly going to be a ladies' man because he is constantly trying to find ways to snuggle and fondle boobs/butts. In response, I say, of course, what guy doesn't? Heck, I even know many straight women and gay men who appreciate feeling some nice boobs or a good butt. She then tells me we can never be sure, however, because she's been attracted to women, and if it's genetic, he could be attracted to men too when he's older. I was floored. We've been married for 8 years, known each other since elementary school, so we've had some pretty deep conversations. We've also had some very detailed discussions of what we're into, since we're both pretty big on communication. I can't help but feel like this is a huge secret she's been keeping from me. I realize this is selfish in a way, and I can't say I'm upset at her for it, but it's just such a shocking revelation. I had to pry, of course, when I realized she was serious, and she explained that she discovered it in high school, had a few one-offs with girls we both know, and has had a few crushes over the years but never really pursued anything, especially once we were together. I told her I couldn't believe she's kept this from me for so long. She said it's not something she's totally comfortable talking about, and I jokingly said, "But think of all the fun we could have had in college?" Which she laughed at and said, "Trust me, there were plenty of opportunities one was too scared to mention to you back then." I laughed it off and we went about our day, but now the curiosity is eating away at me. I don't want to pry more, because she mentioned how it makes her uncomfortable to talk about, but I know myself, and there is no way I will be able to just let this go. Where the hell do I go from here? LOL. Edit 1. Fam. It keeps coming up, but please understand I'm not assuming she's bi equals threesomes. That's a stereotype I don't subscribe to. We've had that talk. She's made her requirements pretty clear for what that situation would entail, which I mentioned in a comment down below. I'm sorry to anyone I've offended, but that was not my intention. Edit 2. I've had to say this a few times, so figured I'd just add it to the post. I'm not concerned that she's cheated on me. We've always had good communication, which is part of why this is shocking to me, but I am happy she felt comfortable enough to reveal this part of herself, especially in such a casual and funny manner. Married 8 years but dating for over a decade at this point. We are not necessarily a new couple, and we've had our fair share of tough conversations, but she is still the light of my life, along with our children. I trust her completely, and I feel it's reciprocated. I'm just really curious to learn more about this side of her that I didn't know existed. I'm sure there have been struggles I know nothing about, and moments where she maybe wanted to tell me something but hasn't. That's okay. I harbor no ill will towards her. In fact, it's substantially the opposite. LOL. I just want to dig for more details in a compassionate way, because wow, I didn't see this coming, face with tears of joy. Edit 3. Some of y'all need therapy. Holy cow. LOL. But it's Reddit. Can't say I'm super surprised. Also, those of you that keep bringing up my 3 years old and his thing with boobs/butts as a sexual thing, please go educate yourselves. Toddlers and young children finding humor in poking and fondling pretty much any giggly body part is totally normal. And the fact that we make jokes about it is just part of how we cope with this embarrassing phase. For some kids, it's a hard habit to break. But for most kids, it goes away as they learn more about personal space. I'm sure not all kids do it, but the scoreboard is highly in favor of those that do. LOL. Edit 4. Thank you to everyone who has given me input so far. I will keep reading comments, but I think I've settled on not mentioning anything until we have a moment alone. Maybe tonight, maybe tomorrow, not sure, but I'm happy to post an update afterwards. Here is the update. Hope everyone's weekend went better than mine, seeing as this was my last Father's Day in a stable home with who I thought was a loving wife. I don't think I could feel any worse than I do now. Many of you tried to warn me as to the potential pitfalls of opening this topic up for discussion with my wife, and now I am falling. I'll just get to it. Weekend started off well. We had a beach trip planned with family and Friday was alright, but Saturday took a turn for the worse. After reading through all the comments and finally deciding on how to bring up the conversation, she was actually the one to bring it up to me. We were taking a walk down the beach while the kids played with the family. Wife said she wanted to see the pier, but the kids wanted to stay back building sandcastles with a couple of cousins. So we took advantage of a little alone time for a nice stroll. As we're walking along the shore, and not out of the ordinary, my wife mentions how pretty a couple of women look that were just cutting in front of us from the water to the sand. She has always been a people watcher, and her mentioning a good-looking person or two while we've been together isn't odd. But now that I know she finds women more than just pretty, I saw this as my opening to touch on the subject. I asked her to hear me out for a moment, and proceeded to thank her for opening up to me the other day regarding her attraction to women. I also let her know that I was very curious about the opportunities she mentioned, but I understood if she just wasn't open to talking about them yet. I apologized for bringing it up again, but I told her that it's been on my mind since she mentioned it, and she has a right to know my thoughts. She hugged me, and as she held me, she thanked me for not freaking out, but mentioned she'd like to take a break to explore these feelings in full. She said she has been wanting to talk to me about it for years, but was afraid with the more time that passed the harder I would take it. She said she still has feelings for me, that I'm still the father of her children and will always hold a special place in her heart, but that she couldn't truly love me without fully discovering herself. Every fiber of my being felt like I was in some grotesque nightmare. I was quickly descending into a whirlwind of emotional anguish, between the feelings of betrayal and heartache, which seemed to grab hold of me as I fell off this ledge and plunge me faster into the dark void. Shattered seems an appropriate word. I was glass, and every word of hers was another bullet to my core. She then said, "Hit me with all your questions." And I was, unfortunately, just coherent enough to organize my anger and vitriol into some very pointed questions, like, how long did you plan to string me along? And did you even think about how this will affect our kids? And was every "I love you" just a lie? She was brutally honest in return. I'm not going to go into every detail, but essentially she said she understands I may be hurting, so she won't get offended, but she's been planning this for quite some time. She said she's been going to therapy after work when she's told me she needed to stay late, and her therapist finally convinced her to end the facade, with the snowball starting its roll on Thursday when she mentioned her attraction to women. Originally, she wanted to ride it out, but the more forbidden her attraction to women felt, the harder it was to contain. Until finally she ended up giving in one night with her best friend and they kissed. She says it didn't go past that, but she did confess to her friend that she had feelings for her, but couldn't bring herself to wreck our home. I cannot understand the type of person who can live with all this secrecy. It is shameless and despicable. All the times we talked about how horrible we think cheaters are, and to think she's been one all along. The mother of my children, the woman I planned to spend the rest of my life with. I was beside myself. She said she would keep up the pretense for the kids a while longer, but she'd be making arrangements to stay at her mom's for a time. I all but collapsed onto that hot sand. Just wanted to bury myself and let the lapping waves slowly drown me. I skipped the denial and bargaining stages of grief. I knew she was being honest, at least for the most part, and that my life as I knew it was over. I was mostly angry. At her, at myself, at God, at everyone on this forsaken beach, now becoming the desert in which my love came to shrivel and die. She gave me a kiss on the cheek and asked me what's on my mind. By this time we had been away for what felt like an eternity and needed to head back, but I asked her what I'm supposed to tell our family. She said she would confess to them too. Make sure everyone understands that if there is a bad guy in this story, it's her and not me. But she couldn't go on without being her whole self, and that as hard as this would be, our kids deserve 2 whole parents, not 1.5. I said they're still going to have 1.5 now, because I don't think I'll ever fully recover from this. We went back and forth a bit more, but I settled on divorce. She asked me to stay with her, but I can barely look at her now. I hate myself for not seeing the signs, but not nearly as much as I hate her. I know I'll get over it, and as of this morning I've already been in contact with my lawyer to prepare things. I called out of work for the week, told them it's a family emergency. I just want to hold my kids and cry. Thank you for listening, Reddit. I may do one more update once all this settles, but for now, any advice is appreciated. I look forward to all the "I told you so" comments and DMs, since hating myself feels good right now. I guess I'm right back to my original question. Where the hell do I go from here?